Oh, look at that sexy face. Wonderful. Wonderful. Look at that. Hey, how you doing? Good. Looking at you in the eyes because I love you. Cool. How's this? Is this a better angle? I don't know. T-shirt says, "Follow me because I'm hilarious at the droid." Wonderful. It's all crinkled up like a great shirt you'd want to wear on a first date when you're trying to impress the girl. Complete sarcasm. I'm getting warmed up for my podcast here. How we doing? Look at that lovable hair. The hair only a mother could love, and any other woman out there who loves long hair, by the way. All right. I like it. That's why I haven't cut it yet. I will. Recently had a girl tell me she likes my short hair better. And by recently, I mean several women have told me that. But even though I love women, I don't want to give in. All right. Just kind of speaking freely into the ether right now. I think we can. All right. I think we can get started. That's my Matt. That's harnessing my inner Matthew McConaughey from what's the name of the movie? The Wolf of Wall Street. All right. We're just going to start recording right now. The segment that I'm going to be dropping in on is the comedy world, and I'm going to re-record what's going on in the world later. So imagine that there's been an introduction already and the initial segment or the first segment right after that intro, which is what's going on in the world. So now I feel like talking the reason I'm doing this is because I feel like just dropping right into where I am right now, having not done much research yet. I still need to go. I need to go listen to, Alexa and get all my updates or Jeddah. Did I talk about that in my last episode? Alexa, what's the most recent movie with Adam Devine?
Here are some results.
Give me a second, guys. I'm doing some research now. Jexy. Yeah, Jexy. All right, guys. I think we can drop on in. Can you see me? YouTube, how you doing? Welcome again. All right. I'm actually going to stop recording over here, and I'm going to start it back up again. All right, guys. So what is going on in the comedy world? Well, as you guys may or may not know, Chris Rock did a live recording Netflix special on Saturday night, competing with me, competing with Saturday night shows, competing with Saturday Night Live. I did not have a chance to watch it being in New York, but I heard about it and I'm excited to at least glimpse at his 10 minutes on Will Smith that I heard he did. So yeah, Chris Rock, first ever live Netflix recording. So what that means for those of you who don't know, yes, all Netflix recordings are recorded live when it's a stand-up comedy special. Oftentimes what happens is a comedian will be in a city for a few nights. Like when Jim Gaffigan was down here recently, I attended his next Netflix recording. Now he had a few shows here and he's probably wearing the same thing on each night, and it will be cut together in order for him to, the editors and him to find the best clips from that weekend that he will present as one Netflix recording once it's been edited and put out into whichever platform, whether it's Netflix, wherever he's doing his next release, right? With a delay. Chris Rock did a live stand-up recording, but it was broadcast live. So there's a difference between me doing a stand-up comedy show but also broadcasting it live on Facebook. This is Chris Rock doing a live show, as all comedians do, stand up live, but then it's actually being pushed out there. So that takes a lot. That's a completely different dynamic because no one ever has to see the footage if you bomb, right? No one's ever going to broadcast a live stand up comedy performance or that was I shouldn't say, I just said that confusingly. No one's ever going to no one's ever going to release a stand-up special where they bombed, right? The cool thing is no one ever, whenever you bomb or if it doesn't go optimally, you can pretend it never happened. The only people that know are the ones that were there that night, right? But you're really putting your skin in the game or your balls on the line by being the first ever to even do it at all and also be the first ever. So I respect the audacity. How it turned out, I don't even know. I haven't seen it yet, but that's very audacious. It's very bold. People who know comedy understand like what a thing that is. The closest thing is a thing like Saturday Night Live where they actually do air the episodes of these sketches that they make each week live. So Saturday Night Live is recorded live and it is broadcast live. One of the things that makes it exciting and one of the things that's always made it exciting. So I heard he did 10 minutes on Will Smith, and it'll be interesting to see Will Smith's rebuttal on this, if there even is a rebuttal. I don't know. He might go from smacking Chris Rock to punching him in the face afterwards. I don't know. Either way, I heard he really went in on Will Smith, which I was kind of surprised. And I'll be honest, I don't like that. I don't like, you don't fight vengeance with or you don't fight negativity with negativity or doubling down on it. But whatever, if it's funny, it's funny, right? So if it feels mean-spirited toward Will Smith, I'm gonna not like it. But if it's just like when it's done out of love or forgiveness and it's humorous, then I'm gonna love it. So I'm most interested to see that 10 minutes. I'd like to see how he starts it, how he finishes it, and I'd like to see the 10 minutes on Will Smith. Or maybe I'll just watch the entire thing if I have nothing else to do with my life. I have a few things to do with my life, so we'll see. I do value my time. Don't you love it when you're talking to a girl about maybe hanging out with a date, and she says, well, I really do value my time, as if I'm not going to be able to make room for you. That's always, all right. It's always fun. So that's Chris Rock. That's the update there on the Netflix release. We'll probably check that out soon. And then Saturday night, I mentioned SNL. Also, I don't know what time the Chris Rock performance aired. Maybe it was at a different time than Saturday Night Live. But as you guys may know, Travis Kelce hosted Saturday Night Live this last weekend. He is the star tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs, so good for him. He beat me to the punch. No pun intended. But I heard he did a bro sketch, having it like a bro, being bros with a gay guy with Bowen Yang. So I saw part of that, was getting a few chortles, if you will. Few chortles, So didn't check it out. I was thinking about going to try to get a standby ticket, but the process in the past when I've gone to Saturday Night Live, I've had 2 standby tickets to SNL before. One time I got in, another time I wasn't able to get in. I think I tried to get in. Was it when Dave Chappelle? I forget who was hosting where I tried to get a ticket, but it didn't work out. But with Travis Kelce, I could have, if the process is still the same where you wake up really early and the pages come out that work for Saturday Night Live, the bottom biatches is like the interns, the pledges, if you will, of the fraternity of Saturday Night Live come out and they write everyone's name down and By the way, that's no knock on being a pledge, especially if any of them are listening to this. At one point, I was considering trying to become, a page is what they call it. It's a cool job. You get to meet people and you get coffee for people and all that. So it's still hard to get one of those jobs. Let's be honest with each other. Sometimes they end up becoming successful later once they leave and whatnot. So the girl from Funny People who hosted recently, the one that's like super sexual and kind of quirky and weird, she was a page. She talked about it when she hosted. I've mentioned her name before. I can't remember it off the top of my head. She wore the glasses, was kind of hot. If she ever hears this, she's going to say kind of hot, fuck you. But, I'm trying to, whatever. It doesn't matter. All right. So Travis Kelce was hosting. I didn't get up early enough. Don't have the discipline. It was cold in New York this week. Didn't want to stand out in the freezing cold. And I think I went out Friday night. Yeah, I did. I did go out Friday night. So I didn't have the capacity to wake up early the next day and try to get a standby ticket. Would I have gone if someone gave me a ticket? Yeah, for sure. But instead, I went out with my buddy Brian Kelly. So maybe we'll talk about that later on when I talk about what's going on in my world. But we're still talking about what's going on in the comedy world. So hopefully the episode was good with Travis Kelce. Again, shout out to that's cool. It's always fun seeing football players do their thing. A few weeks back, I mentioned the very first episode of Saturday Night Live. I think it was in 1975. Hosted by George Carlin. A bunch of his monologue was about football. So it's funny how my two biggest passions in life, aside from intercourse and quality friends and family time, is football and comedy. So, all right. So I don't know who's hosting the next episode of SNL or when that is, if they're going to do another one this weekend or not. But either way, I'm not in New York anymore, so I will not be trying to attend. So it'll be basically the same as if I was there this last weekend in regard to me trying to go to Saturday Night Live to watch an episode. All right. Does that all make sense? Good stuff. Good, great, grand, wonderful. Talked about Dave Chappelle briefly for a second. That was a highlight of my trip. Thursday night, I was at the Olive Tree Cafe with Trevor, grabbing wings and a beer. And we were at the bar, and Dave Chappelle walked in and sat down at the bar, a couple seats away from us. He was there hanging out for about an hour and a half. And this is the part of the episode where we can break down the psychology. Technically, you're really not supposed to, as a comedian, if you're hanging out at the Comedy Cellar, especially if you're not in there, you don't want to fanboy the comedians because it can come off, one, not professional, but two, there is a middle school hierarchy, for lack of a better term, where you don't speak to some of these people unless spoken to. What I could have done is maybe looked over a little bit and made eye contact and smiled if Dave smiled back to me and just maybe nodded my head and said yes. But I was a little tipsy because Trevor and I had gone out before we went to the Olive Tree Cafe there, celebrating with him and some of his friends that he went to Manhattan College with that are living in New York. We went out and had some drinks and we were celebrating. And as we were calling it a night, we stopped by the Olive Tree Cafe, and that's when Dave Chappelle walked in. And, I think we were both a little tipsy, so we weren't, I may have made a more casual attempt to at least make eye contact with Dave and smile, but I think in my drunk state of mind, I'm like, play it cool, act cool. Don't act like so I just, in my head, I'm like, let him come to me, type thing in my drunk state of mind. So I can't say I have regret, but maybe I do slightly that I could have at least looked over and smiled. And if he was warm, maybe said hi. I didn't do it. There was a lot of people that began crowding him in waves where it's funny how it happens. At first people are kind of like casual and normal. And then a couple people are bold enough to say hi. And then everyone suddenly dips their toe in the water and tries to go over there. And then there's a giant mass of people being collected. They locked the doors shortly after he was in there to make sure that, he didn't get stormed, right? And then he ended up going down and doing some time downstairs. I forget which room that is of the Comedy Cellar, but it's one of the 3 rooms they have. And we've all seen him, do clips there, and we've heard of him, going on stage and doing hours at a time there in the middle of the night. But it was really cool getting to be in his presence for a little bit, 6 feet away, basically a safe COVID distance, right? And he seemed normal. He seemed healthy looking. He looked good. It was cool. Again, mind you, I was a little tipsy at the time, but what if it wasn't even Dave Chappelle? It was Dave Chappelle for sure. I know that because everyone was talking about it right there in front of my face, and I know exactly what he looks like. He looks like Dave Chappelle. So it was cool. Really cool experience to be there. He ordered wings. We were ordering wings. I like to think that he saw that the wings looked good. He appreciated that, so he got some wings. So I like to think I was in his short-term memory for a little bit at least before he probably forgot at this point now, right? But I was in his short-term memory for that night at least, and this camera has a lot of short-term memory too. So I'll be deleting this camera much like the way that Dave Chappelle's mind maybe has already forgotten about me. Either way, in some ways, I don't know if I did the right or wrong thing, but it's funny how you don't even see somebody like that every day, let alone be in their presence or that close. And whether or not you believe in God, let me just talk about some ironic stuff for a second. Earlier that night, I was tuned in and participating in one of my friends, Rhonda Ramsey's podcast about the desegregation program that we had at Eureka, where they would bus inner city kids out to the suburbs in order to, give inner city students the opportunity to go to a really good school like ours out in the suburbs that happen to be mostly white because of the way, it is mostly in the Midwest and Missouri. And we talked about the DSEG program and I participate with that. I love Rhonda. I want to try to do what I can, no matter how small of a ripple effect it can be. But I want to do what I can to help the cause of getting rid of racism and creating equity and equality everywhere, right? So it's truly, I want it to be a utopian society, for goodness sakes, where we can all, thrive and have equal opportunity and feel like things are fair. And it's weird. I do that because I know it's the right thing to do. To help Rhonda and my friends and things like that, and to give back again, even if it's no matter how small of a gift it is or big, who's to say? But either way, I do it because it's the right thing to do. And whether you believe in God or not, it was very ironic that as I spent the last couple hours specifically trying to help that cause, someone of the Black community who's towers over the comedic career accomplishments that I've had, is in my presence. And it was almost like God showing me, maybe sometimes when you reach down to lift someone up, I'll reach down to lift you up type thing. I didn't meet him, and maybe God was giving me an opportunity to say hi to him, and I didn't take it. And if I missed that boat, I apologize to God and myself. I thought I was doing the right thing, so I don't regret it, because I did what I thought was the right thing in the moment. But, hindsight's 2020. You look back and say, first thing that my mom asked me when I said I'm next to Dave Chappelle, she goes, "Did you meet him?" And then when people started asking me if I met him, when I told them I was in the same room as him, it started making me second guess, did I do the right thing, right? And that had happened once before with Lorne Michaels too. I mentioned in my podcast that I met him at a work where I was like serving drinks, and they said, whatever you do, don't talk or try to promote yourself. So I don't know. either way, it was cool, And is it a missed opportunity? I don't know. I mean, I was there hanging out, hoping maybe something would happen to where we would talk, but there's different philosophies on it. Fortune favors the bold, or it's good to remain professional. I don't know. I really don't know. But I was tipsy, and usually when you're tipsy, you don't make as good of decisions. So TBD on that. We did have a great time that night, though. I don't regret having a few beers. It all just unfolds the way it is. You can't regret or retroactively analyze too much unless it's like done for healthy purposes and you're not going to get all bent out of shape about it. So that's that. I was in the same room as Dave Chappelle for an hour and a half, and Trevor was right there with me, and it's wild. It's wild. It's the closest I've been to the biggest star in the comedy world. I was close to Louis C.K. once there years ago. He was talking to Nikki Glaser and a few others. I think Joe List was there, and they're sitting at the table, and that's when you're really not supposed to do it, is if they're sitting at a table. But Dave was at the bar, so I don't know. I think if I think about it anymore, I'm going to start getting depressed. Like, why didn't I say something? But at least I got to be there, and I am thankful for that. So I don't know what I would have even said. Maybe he would have appreciated my football experience if he's a football fan, or Trevor's basketball experience if he's a basketball fan. I don't know. It's you never really know. Either way, that was my New York Dave Chappelle comedy experience. At least this time. I mean, I've seen him perform in New York before, but I was about 600 feet away at the Radio City Music Hall, watching him in the audience. But anyway, what was I going to say? I think that is good for now as far as what's going on in the comedy world. We can talk about what's going on in my comedy world next. All right, let's talk about what's going on in my comedy world. All right. All right. So, what is going on in Michael's comedy world? Ugh. All right. I did a few shows when I was in New York. So, I flew out there last Wednesday. It was March 1st. And I was there until yesterday, March 6th. Yesterday was Monday. Today's Tuesday, March 7th, as we've covered. And did a couple shows while I was there. The purpose of the trip was to try and get on, any opportunity I can to reconnect with my friends and comedic connections in New York, and get a couple shows in, a couple podcasts, or make some content, whatever. Then it's always beneficial. So comedically on this trip, I was able to get in a couple shows. I was able to make some content. I did 3 shows. We'll start with that. Shout out to the people that put me up. I stopped by LOL on Wednesday night to see my guy OC Caleb, because he was going to be gone for the rest of the week. So I wanted to say hi to him. It's been a little bit since I've seen him. Show him some love. And anyway, I showed up to LOL, and the booker happened to be there, who I know. I won't reveal any information, but either way, we caught up, and unexpectedly he was there, he or she, or they, them. I'm going to keep it mysterious. And they said, "You want to get up?" So I did 15 minutes at LOL. They've moved from Times Square to a little bit west there, not too far from Broadway Comedy Club now. And it was cool to just randomly get on stage without even asking for a spot. And it was just cool to, first night back in New York, to get up and interact and be there with a live audience again, and get in front of a New York crowd, because every crowd's different. New York has, especially if it's locals or international tourists in the crowd, it's a different crowd than some of the Florida crowds in different ways. Sometimes there's a lot of similarities, but you can tell when certain things aren't hitting as hard, or if there's certain sensitive topics that are more sensitive than others. And, it's audience to audience really, but there is some kind of consistency, or like you could look at like statistics, like statistically in New York, you don't want to say go DeSantis, and statistically you don't want to say go Biden in Florida. It's just kind of, there are some it's not always the case, but for if you're doing a cross section and like analyzing data percentages, those would both be fair points to make there. So what else? NYC, yeah, I stopped by the comic strip, did Gladys's room. They had me do a guest set as a special guest. Got to meet some people there and see her, get back in the comic strip, see a bunch of stuff about Adam Sandler. Be reminded that he started there in some ways. I think Gladys knew him when he first started, and he was doing her room for a little bit before he got SNL. And it was good to see her. I think the first time I ever came to New York with Chris Blackerby, I did one of her developmental mics or whatever. And so I've known her for a long time. She hates my hair, but she always gets mad that I didn't go on The Bachelor TV show, and she hates my hair. So that's kind of our relationship. But God bless her, and we had fun. It was cool. Dom came he actually filmed my set. He has like a really nice camera, and he filmed my set there. Decent. We'll see how the tape looks when I get it. Am I able to use it for anything? Potentially, I don't know, TBD. But either way, it was good to be there and just kind of be there for a moment, reconnect with some of the people that I've known from her room. James Camacho did a guest spot there. Good to see him. And, I've known him for a while. We've done each other's podcast. Good to see him doing well, him and his girl. He's got a girlfriend now. So if you remember from the James Camacho episode, we talked about relationships and all that. So it's cool to see that he's found someone that he really likes, and I'm real happy for them. And then I did a show Sunday night. Out in Brooklyn and Williamsburg. Comedy Commune. Shout out to Jared Waters for putting me on. And his Jared Waters is a Tampa comedian, and we're connected through the Tampa scene and some other Tampa comics. And Farzan was there. I forget Farzan's last name, but he's from Tampa. I know him. We've performed together out here. We did a show in Panama City together. And, I remember when he was getting ready to move to New York. I guess it's been a year already for him. So it was great seeing him. Appreciated the stage time. Got to work on some stuff. Got to make fun of myself and do some new stuff that I wrote while I was in New York. Some notes that I had scribbled down. So that was kind of cool. And it was a good thing. It was a good thing. Got to hang out even after the show. Drove back. Farzan gave a couple of us a ride back into Manhattan. We stopped by the Stand. There was a show going on there. One of the Florida comedians was on it. And then I saw a bunch of people that I knew. Ran into Usama Siddiqui. Caught up with him for a little bit. You guys may have seen him on America's Got Talent. I've known him for a while now. Ran into several people, including, and I'm not going to say his name, but one of the bookers of a show now that gets produced. It's a monthly show at the Stand, and I think they are doing a downstairs one next time around. They had one the night that we stopped by there. It's a couple guys, several guys that produced that together, and made some good new connections. The Florida scene helped. There's a Florida scene in New York. So, people that, started in Florida or from Florida. So I felt kind of welcomed and some warmth there, which was really cool. Much appreciated. Got to see it was just a good time to reconnect with people. I'll be hanging out there and you run into people. Like I said, one of the bookers, I know him from an old mic that I used to do several years ago in Tribeca, and they had like a monthly show in this like Mexican restaurant basement, and now he's part of a group that's producing a monthly show at the Stand. So that's really cool. You just never know when you plant seeds and come back, you see that they've grown, and it was encouraging to see that. It was exciting to see that. It was just a good night, and then we went back to Grizzly Pear for a little bit, and Jared Waters was running a show at the Grizzly Pear, a midnight show there. So Jared's hustling, good dude, Jared Waters. So thank you to him and the rest of the Tampa comics, Farzan, and several others that I got to hang out with. So that was my last night. That was Sunday night in New York, and then Friday and Saturday nights were the two nights that I didn't do shows while I was there, and that was on purpose. I had a date Friday night, which I'll talk about later, and then Saturday night went out with my buddy Brian Patrick Kelly, who helped me film the music video "I Am Michael." If you guys have seen it, it's Brian. If it was just me by myself, I would not have been able to do it. Right. So Brian helped me do it as a friend. And he did me that favor. If I would have tried to hire a film crew, they probably wouldn't even have done as good of a job as him. And it would have costed me a lot of money. So, Brian Patrick Kelly is a good dude. And it was great to see him Saturday night and to go out and have a night out on the town with the Broham. And we used to call each other when we lived in New York. We said that we're each other's Sams, right? That way, no one's the main character and no one's the secondary character. We're each other's Sams and each other's story. And I thought that's special. That's really, it's kind of not to get emotional, but it makes me. If I stop and think, it'll bring a tear to my eye. Because you need that. I needed a friend like him when I was in New York. Because it's such a hard city and you just can't do it by yourself. New York is a tough place. So, thanks to Brian. And what else is going on? When I was there, we spent a full day. I think it was Friday. No, it was Thursday. So Thursday, Dom and I met up and we made a ton of content. It was funny because when I first arrived in New York on Wednesday, I was carrying my bags through Greenwich Village to go stop and drop them off at the place that I stay in Soho. And I get a text from Dom as I'm walking past. He goes, "I just saw you." So it's just funny how you come into the city and you go to the right places. You know people, they recognize you and you recognize them. And it was pretty cool, to be able to make a ton of stuff with him on Thursday. We busted out the camera. That was before the Gladys thing. So Dom and I were out in Soho area and by NYU and Greenwich Village, made like 6 or 7 really short sketch things, a lot shorter than like the Midwest Sketch Bandit stuff. So like really fast hitting stuff and on a different camera. So it does look different. I don't even think we're really calling it Midwest Sketch Bandits, even though we are that. But it's you guys may have seen a recent post on my Instagram that was the CVS humor, the CVS joke, part of Dom's comedy routine. Actually, one of my favorite jokes of his, we turned into a sketch, and I was honored to be part of it because I love that joke. It's hilarious. It always destroys. So, and that first night that I did comedy at LOL, Dom showed up not long after me. He did a spot, and then we did get to see OC close out the show. So it was kind of special how it all just kind of worked out. It kind of all unfolded naturally there. And it was cool that we were able to actually make shit with the camera, I mean, that by itself makes the trip to just the stuff that we filmed for content, makes it worth going to New York, if that makes sense, and, it was really cool. So, and I want to give a special shout out to my friend Michael, who's always just in the background, helping me in crucial ways that are customized just for me, and I'm thankful for that. Um, so you know who you are, and and I mean that truly, genuinely. You know, I thank all the people who've helped me in different ways. So, you know, my buddy Trevor, Dom, you know, Dom's a generous dude. You know, Dom and I are different in a lot of ways. Trevor and I are also different in a lot of ways, but we played basketball, or we played sports. So we have like a similar, there's a lot of overlap in the way that we think and make decisions from our several years in sports. But you know, each of us are a unique person that make independent decisions, and sometimes we have different reasonings and different decisions that we make. It's part of being interconnected, and part of the human race, though, is the color wheel of all of us together. You know, you can zoom in and say the color wheel of the comedy scene. You know, in comedians are some unique people, some very unique people. I'll say that much. And it's kind of fun. And one cool thing about being able to do comedy is being able to use it as catharsis from time to time. You can draw from negative experiences or depression or whatever it is that may seem negative. You can flip it and turn it into, you know, laughter for others, and that's a really cool thing. I mean, I wish depression on no one, or anxiety or negativity, but you know, to be able to turn that into gold for others is really a cool thing, and then it makes you feel better, you know, when you can get laughter from some of the shit that happens to all of us, right? So anyway, I ran into Ryan Beck on Saturday night. Ryan Beck started at the University of Missouri with me and Kyle Ayers and several others. The three of us all lived in New York at different times. I remember Ryan, when he first started, he got an internship with The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. I think he was a page, kind of how I was talking about that thing earlier about pages of SNL. I think he was something like that, or I forget what exactly he did, but he got to go to New York for a summer, and that really connected him and got him connected with the New York scene. And I remember when I visited New York with my buddy Jimmy, like the first time or the second time I was in first time was when I was with Chris Blackerby. Second time, Jimmy and I came to New York for New Year's one year. I think it was like 2011. I think I was living in LA at the time. And Ryan showed me around. He was already, you know, we went to a bunch of mics together. We did a bunch of mics at that time. And we went to a show at the Comedy Cellar. He knew the door guys at the Comedy Cellar, and they let him and I in to see a show. I think it was on New Year's Eve, actually. And I remember it might have been Ted Alexandro who was on stage, who just opened for Jim Gaffigan a few weeks ago. I'm pretty sure it was Ted Alexandro. It could have been someone else, but it felt like it was Ted Alexandro. Either way, you know, Ryan gave me a tour of the city. We talked, we worked on stuff, collaborated, you know, both in comedy and in personal life there. And I thought that was really nice of Ryan, especially looking back. And, you know, I was out in LA doing my thing, and that was really, that was kind of Ryan. And he's doing really well. He's in at the Comedy Cellar. He's been there for a while. He did his Comedy Central debut 5-minute spot a while ago now. So he's doing his thing at the Comedy Cellar. We got to catch up for a little bit, and it was nice to see him. Reminded me of Kyle Ayers, you know, because he started with us too. And Kyle, I think Kyle's doing stuff in LA, and he's from KC, so I'm sure he's happy with the Chiefs W recently. But Kyle helped me too. Kyle and Ryan used to have a podcast. I think it was called The Middle Notes. And they had me on one time when we were all in Columbia at the same time. I think they were booked at Deja Vu one weekend when they were living in New York and coming back to do that. So we did that podcast together. And I just remember Kyle actually helped me figure out how to actually put together the X's and the O's to like actually record a podcast and get it onto a podcast, get it out into the universe. I'm not even sure. I wouldn't know how to do it by memory at this point. If someone's just like took my podcast off the air and I had to figure this whole thing out. Like there is a lot to it. I'm not really, that's never been my savvy. I'm more of a people person. And that's not to say Kyle isn't. I'm just saying for me, I'm a people person. Kyle's probably a people person too. I mean, I know Kyle, he knows me, right? But either way, he helped me. And that's the point that I'm trying. He's been on this episode before. He's been on a guest on my podcast when I was living in New York. And you guys can tune into that. So I just wanted to give him a shout out. Both of them, Mizzou comedians that started a long time ago, and we're all professionals. We're all professional comedians now. So appreciate them for who they are and what they do. And each of us has a unique voice. We're unique people. We have a different story to tell, a different perspective, but we're all doing it. So great to see Ryan back. And speaking of other Missouri, University of Missouri comedians, Trevor Glassman, you guys know him. It's great that we happen to be in New York at the same time. He was doing shows. Heard he killed it at the Grizzly Pair, which was really great. And it was fun to go celebrate with him and his friends afterwards before seeing Dave Chappelle. And then there's another guy, Brian Wrights, who just started. He was leading the New York Mizzou alumni group for a while. And, when we would go and, they have that bar in the upper, maybe Midtown, where you go and you watch Missouri football games. He was kind of running that Missouri alumni thing for students that went to Mizzou that live in New York. And they even had me do stand-up comedy one halftime of a Mizzou game. I think Brian came in and he went to KU. So, and he was rocking his KU stuff. I'm like, Brian. So, he was getting some flack for that. I almost started a fight, which is kind of funny, but we did have a good time. It was cool to do that comedy show a while back. And it's wild, it's really wild. It's cool to see that Brian is giving comedy a go. I think he runs some kind of a show at Stand Up New York now, actually. So he had one recently. I wasn't there during that time, but saw that he's doing that, and he seems to like comedy, so that's exciting. So give him a look, support him. What else? I need to get back to I have a colleague that I worked with before. This is also what's going on in my comedy world. It's maybe not in New York, but I need to get back to a colleague. They have a corporate retreat here in Miami in a couple of weeks, and I need to get back to him about potentially doing a comedy show down there for their company. So was there anything else I wanted to say about New York and my comedy world before I move on? I don't think so. That's my comedy world at the moment. I'm doing trivia tonight at the Marriott. I'm back in Tampa, downtown, Water Street. Come on out, 6 to 8. It'll probably be 7 to 9 because there is a Lightning game tonight that starts at 7. So usually when that happens, if it's a home game, we start at 7 because a lot of people leave to go to that game if I start at 6. So come on out. I'll be there. It's going to be fun. And I think that covers mostly what I want to talk about regarding my comedy world. So let's go ahead and move on to the final segment of what's going on in my world.